Unstoppable Real Estate Investors. I am so excited to see you all and have our guest Derek Dombeck, who has been a guest in the past last year, and his VA and my VA got together and said, hey, you two should talk again. So here we are, and we have Victoria Unruh with us, and anybody else is welcome to hop on Zoom if you want to be part of the conversation. But welcome, Derek. Glad to have you back.
Well, thanks for having me back. I know we had a lot of fun the first time, so I have no doubt we'll do that again.
Great. Well, let's just start with letting people know who you are. What were you doing before real estate?
Years and years ago, I was a construction worker. That's how I got started, and I was good with my hands, so sweat equity was easy for me. But it's been over 20 years since I started in the business.
So. Wow. Okay. And that's such a great background to start with, is construction, because then you really understand the foundation of it all. And so were you a general contractor or subcontractor or?
So I worked for a company that actually was in the pipe trade. So I used to put in sprinklers for fire protection. And I always joked that, we were the redheaded stepchild on every job site, because it's a very expensive fire protection system that you hope never has to be used, because that means there was a fire. So, but that gave me a lot of connections with all the other trades. So as I got into the real estate business, when I was looking for electricians, plumbers, painters, drywallers, all the different trades, I had already seen a lot of these people's work. And I could bring them on my own job sites, and quite honestly, a lot of them were always looking for additional side work, and it worked out awesome.
Like it. And so what was the transition for you from that into real estate? Where did the real estate investment bug bite you?
It actually started, I was approached by a financial services company, and my wife and I, and ultimately they brought me on, kind of a multi-level marketing type of company, which that was not my calling, but I learned a ton of how money works and how mortgages work and everything. So I did that for a little while, but I really knew that real estate was my niche. That's where I really wanted to be. And so I had bought my first house, which was a fixer-upper long before I was getting involved in real estate, and remodeled that, added on to it. So I had a fair amount of equity and just experience, and that was in my early 20s. So
and that was a property you lived in, right?
That was the property I lived in. So several years later, when I was about 27 years old, is when I bought my first investment properties, and I don't do anything halfway. So within the first month, we bought a couple of duplexes locally in Wisconsin where I live. And at the same time, we contracted to build some spec homes in Florida. And I was just off to the races. The downside was, after several years of, uptick, 2007 happened, and it all came crashing down.
Yeah. And you survived it?
By the skin of our teeth. Yeah.
Okay.
But we had to do things much, much differently. I was no longer bankable, and, I did lose a bunch of property. So that's when my transition into learning how to control or buy property with alternative methods really came into play. And I also took it upon myself to take in anything I could with negotiating, sales materials, really learning how to talk to people. And it's one of my passions today, but one of my pet peeves with people that get into our business or any business, they don't actually learn how to talk to people. And I would say it's even worse now, because everybody's on their phones and just texting, emailing. There's no personal side to it anymore. So at this point, I do teach people, I train people how to negotiate with my style of negotiating, and it's a lot of fun. And when you become a master at it, it's not just for buying and selling real estate. It comes into play with every aspect of your life.
Yeah. So talk about that. Talk about your way of negotiating, your way of
Sure.
being creative on deals?
So the creative structures themselves don't matter if you don't ever get to that point of the conversation to introduce the creative structures. And for me, I want to be able to, within a matter of minutes, I want to get people to open up and start telling me what they need. And then I'm going to solve their problem. And if I can solve enough problems, I'll get some deals, we'll be profitable. And so specific to real estate, I have an elevator pitch that I like to get out in the first couple minutes of every conversation, which I can quote for you. But the other thing that I want to point out is people are going to hear you differently depending on how you speak and what you say and your tone that you say it in. But what I try to determine, and to preface this, I do almost all of this over the phone because I buy across the entire Midwest and specifically across the entire state of Wisconsin. So I'm not going to drive 2, 3, 4 hours to go look at a property if I'm not fairly confident we're going to get a contract. So I have to do all this over the phone. And even if you're working in your own backyard, it's still really, in my opinion, important to get much, much better on the phone. But I want to figure out what the personality type is of who I'm talking to, which there's always clues, and you're always looking for those clues. So Rihanna, if you were a seller of a property and you're really analytical and I'm not analytical, a lot of what I would say you wouldn't necessarily hear. You're listening to the words, but it's not sinking in. So if I realize quickly that you're analytical, I'm going to steer the conversation into more data driven information. I might bring up comps or bring up actual expenses of rehabs. But if you were more like me, I'm considered a driver. I make decisions quickly. I don't need a lot of information.
You're basing this on the DISC model, and just to let people know, there's 4 basic personality types, and all of us have a little of all of these things in us, but you tend to have 1 or 2 main characteristics, and it's called DISC for the 4 types. Driver, someone who's very type A, they talk fast, they think fast, they're not very impatient, they're not super sensitive, they're very task oriented, and they want to get shit done. They're usually good leaders, and oddly enough, they tend to be the most flexible of all the personality types because they always have an agenda and they realize they've got to flex and adjust in order to get people to help them get stuff done. Then you have the influencers that are the schmoozers, the salespeople, the people that can interact, and they're very friendly. They're very talkative. It wouldn't be a surprise to anybody that I'm very high ID. I'm very much the influencer persuader, and that's where I lead. And they're on an axis like this. It's pace, and are you task or are you slow pace, fast pace? Are you relationship oriented or task oriented? So a driver they've got a fast pace and they're task oriented. Those are their priorities. Move fast. Don't bog me down in details. Don't talk too much. Don't tell me I don't care. Trump would be an example of a driver, big time. Not the healthiest driver, but a driver. Then an influencer is that smooth talking salesperson, politician, gift of gab, and really wants to either help someone or influence someone, or just move a conversation along, get related to people. Then you have the steady. Those are the stable or steady types, tend to be the more analytical types. They're the ones that need, when you ask them what time it is, they want you to give them a detailed description of how the watch was built. And then compliant are the amiables. Those are the people that wouldn't say shit if they had a mouthful. They don't want to offend people. They need to learn to be more assertive, but you probably have a lot of these type of people as friends because they're absolutely delightful. but they can be the most dangerous because you don't know that they're not happy. You don't know nothing, anything's wrong. And you probably have a driver, an amiable wife, don't you, Derek? Because opposites tend to attract. You know, the amiable personality type, they let things go, they let things go, they let things go until they're like gone, and you wondered what happened. So it's what Derek's talking about is learning how to communicate in their language at their pace. So influencers and amiable, compliant people, they're all about relationships. Drivers and analytical people are all about tasks. The driver is fast-paced and task-oriented. So what they have in common with an analytical person is they both are all about getting something done. But what'll drive a driver crazy about an analytical person is they just have to have all the details, and it just takes forever, and they're, you know, and it's like, get things done. We can make mistakes and fix them later. Analytical, they don't want to take action, and they don't want to make a mistake. It's very important to get things right. With a driver, it's about getting things done. With an influencer, it's about building a network and building relationships. And with an amiable, a compliant person, it's about just, you know, making good impression, making sure everybody's happy, not rocking the boat. And so, you know, compliant people are slower paced, they're very cautious, and they're relationship oriented. And then influencer, faster pace, talk faster than a compliant person, and they're relationship oriented. So with that being said, there are a lot of personality assessments. There's Clifton Strengths, Myers-Briggs, Human Design. There's a lot of ways to assess, but this is a really great one, very popular. Tony Robbins made it popular decades ago for business because it's a quick way to assess people and get in pace with them, build rapport with them, know how to be effective in your communication with them in order to influence them. Okay, I'm done with the little sidebar that Derek was probably like, okay, when is she going to shut up so we can get moving?
Well, I'm a driver, so I absolutely was thinking that, but I know it's very important for you to introduce those concepts. And that's really what I do. And you can't ask the person on the other side of your negotiation to take a disc test. You have to figure this out as quickly as you can and look at those clues in order to move your conversation, which is all a negotiation is. It's just a conversation, but to move that forward as quickly as possible. And if you are speaking to them in different terms that they're not hearing, you're going to get no's, or you're going to get, I need to think about it. And those are going to be their answers. Well, that's death to us in the business.
Yeah, and NLP takes this a lot further because we talk about just you're listening for people's language that they use to determine what their representation is. Someone visual? Are they auditory? Are they kinesthetic? And that's going to give you a lot of information on how they process information. So I think I love that you're making this point, Derek, that something you said, when you're negotiating, and all that is having a conversation. If I were to distill this business down to two simple things, it's about building relationships by having conversations.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything. Making an
Absolutely.
offer, it's a conversation. Looking for deals, you're having conversations with agents, sellers. Raising money, you're having conversations with people who have the money. That's all it is having conversations with people.
And the way I present it is you should always know the end result as you're entering into that conversation. We're guiding the conversation and without manipulating people, but we're guiding it to a preconceived conclusion. And when you become really good at that, it's really amazing how quote unquote lucky you get, right? You're lucky because you find all these deals. There's no such thing as luck involved. It's a skill, and it can be learned. And it doesn't matter if you're introverted or extroverted. All of these things, if you work on it, can be learned. And over the years, especially back in the day, I would record phone calls or kitchen table conversations if I could. If I couldn't, I would at least leave that conversation and take notes and review what happened in that social interaction. What was my body language? What was theirs? How did they respond? How did I respond? And over time, it becomes a memory or a muscle memory. And it just becomes so natural. You don't even have to think about it. And I had mentioned earlier, I kind of have an elevator pitch. Anytime that I get on the phone with somebody that's selling a house, for example, and I'm assuming a lot of your listeners are in the residential space, but this can work for commercial or any other business. I want to get across that there's multiple ways I can help them and ask their permission to ask questions. So the way I do that, Raina, I'm just going to role play with you. You're the seller. I would simply say, Raina, we buy houses in several different ways. All cash is not a problem, but that's typically going to be our lowest offer because we're tying up cash. If that doesn't work for you, we could look at taking over debt if you still have debt payments, or we can make payments to you over time if you don't have debt. Or in some cases, we just lease property and we buy it at a future date, which works really well if you're a landlord trying to offset some capital gains. I tell you all this, Raina, just so you know that there's multiple ways that we can help you today, but I am going to have to ask you some questions that most people maybe wouldn't answer or wouldn't ask. Is that okay with you? To which you would typically respond, yes.
Yeah, and it's Rayana.
Rihanna, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And so now we have asked their permission in the rest of our conversation. If we ask a question that they're uncomfortable with, we can always go back to the beginning and say, do you remember when I brought up that I was going to have to ask you some questions? That's why I want to know what you owe on your loan, or that's why I want to know, fill in the blank. And it just brings them back to center. Conversation keeps flowing.
Or,
So,
that's one way of doing it, or you could just say, hey, look, I know some of these questions might be a little uncomfortable. They might feel really personal. What Derek is pointing out here is if you buffer the blow, if you let them know what you're going to be asking them and why, and there's a reason for it, that helps people relax. Like, hey, look, there's going to be some personal information I'm going to ask, and I'm only asking about your finances and this and that to assess the situation to see if there's a solution I have that would work for you,
absolutely. And now that's when you can start talking about the different structures, the creative type of stuff. So I would say close to 75% of our leads that we're working on at any given point in time, people are open to at least discussing alternatives to just a cash purchase. And
like subject to and seller finance and novations and lease options and wraps. I mean, there's so many kinds of creative financing, especially with the times we're in, and who knows what's going to happen after the election, but also getting creative about what kind of problems do you want to solve, and is there a particular niche? Like some people it's foreclosures, short sales, probates. Do you have a particular niche that you like to serve?
no, we're wide open, meaning I will look at anything and I will work on anything. We've been in a residential space for years. However, currently I'm working on developing out an RV park. We've got a contracting business that I'm working with somebody on potentially to buy that. Friday, I'm going to look at a laundromat. So it really doesn't matter to me. I'm just solving people's problems. And if it's not something I want to add to my portfolio, I've got a huge network of other people that don't know how to structure creatively that are more than happy to step in, and I can sell the deals to them or partner with them, joint venture, you name it. So I get a fair number of wholesalers that contact me. They've got leads that don't fit their buy box for their cash side. And so I get involved and help structure the deal, and we split them. So it's great.
So talk a little bit about your portfolio. What's in your portfolio? Like, it sounds like you like a variety of things, but talk a little bit about that.
I don't love being a landlord. So anything I hold longer term, we typically are lease optioning if it's in the single family space. I have a building that we lease out. It's shared space. So there's 12 bedrooms in this building with two kitchens and six bathrooms. We lease that out by the week. And I've got a
Kind of
mineral.
like a little Airbnb motel type of a thing.
Yeah, kind of picture traveling nurses, construction workers, they have the shared space, the shared kitchen, but they can stay there cheaper than staying in a hotel, but it gives them a lot more,
That's
flexibility and
cool.
like it. Yeah. Um we have a sand quarry that came from buying a farm years ago that was being the farmers were losing it to bankruptcy and foreclosure. So we worked out a deal with them and we developed the back end of the farm into a mineral quarry, which we sell sand out of. Um, gosh, there's nothing I won't necessarily say no to if it makes sense financially. So
And so what part of the business do you love the most?
oh, I am a deal junkie. People ask me what do I do for a living? I literally tell them I get paid to bullshit. I get paid to talk to people, put deals together. I'm after doing hundreds and hundreds of flips, I'm pretty bored with single family houses, just buying a fixer upper for cash, fixing it, reselling it. Do I still do it? Sure, but it doesn't really get me excited anymore. At this point, I really love what we're doing on the education side. I host three national mastermind groups. We put on a conference on a cruise ship once a year, which is an advanced strategies and networking event. And that I love. Podcasting, being a guest on podcasts, you know, it just I've been through so much crap over the years, and years ago I was kind of ashamed of it, and now I embrace it because I know that other people can avoid the crap I went through. So that's what I'm passionate about.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, you like variety. And where are you heading? What's the ultimate exit strategy for you?
The ultimate exit strategy, developing more mailbox money, but doing it more in a consulting manner. So I do live my life based off of a vision for what my family, my wife and kids want to have personally, and so with how we want to live our personal lives, we're designing our business to fit within a limited number of hours available for work. And so for me, I just my former business partner bought me out of a lending company that we built up over the last 10 years, which was an awesome business. It's kind of boring for me. And
So do you
so
want to do more of that, build businesses up and then sell them and
yeah, or do consulting with other people that want to, build out their real estate companies or um, build out a lending company, for example. And just go and be a consultant and get, instead of charging this astronomical upfront fee and they don't know if they're going to succeed or not, um, take a portion of the equity or a portion of the business and
have
almost
some skin in the game to help them succeed?
long term. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's what I love doing. When these wholesalers call me, when these other people call me for advice, I tell everybody and all of your listeners, I'll give anybody advice and I'll give anybody some time. But if you are looking for consulting, meaning an ongoing amount of my day, then let's start talking about how do we get a piece of the deal or whatever. And that's just a lot of fun. It doesn't feel like work. So my grand vision, if I ended up with fractions of multiple people's companies over the next 10 years, then the following 10, 20 years, I'm getting mailbox money off of those efforts.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And what would you say your biggest challenge has been, Derek, as a real estate investor? When, you went through the crash of 2008, all that, but like, ultimately, what's been the biggest challenge for you as an investor?
Not knowing how to say no has been an incredible challenge for me. I am a big D, big I, on my disc, and I like things to get done, yesterday. That's how much patience I have. But I don't ever want to say no to people when they have a question or they need help. And that's been a challenge on the family side, right? And this is something that as we started hosting our own masterminds and also being a part of other masterminds, I was challenged probably 5 years ago with actually setting office hours and not answering the phone
Yeah,
24.
because D's can be workaholics. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And what we come to find out is we as entrepreneurs will lie to ourselves and say we're doing things for our family when in fact we're doing things to our family. When I tell my kids to be quiet because it's 7 o'clock at night and it's supposed to be family time, but dad's got to take a phone call, that's not doing something for the family. That's harming the family. And so my
Love
peers,
that.
yeah, my peers at a mastermind, they challenged me and they said, you are not allowed to take phone calls after 5 p.m. or weekends without your wife's permission. So if I have a scheduled meeting or I have, something on a Saturday, as long as it doesn't affect anything and my wife and kids are fine with it. And
And as
that's,
a high D, thinking you have to
oh,
ask anyone for permission for anything is,
amen, sister.
you want to crawl out of your skin, right?
Absolutely. But the fear or the lie we tell ourselves is if I don't take this phone call, I'm not going to get that deal and that could cost me 20, 30, 40, $50,000. And but the reality was when you set office hours and you're not accessible 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, people will conform to your schedule and it actually increased my business and also obviously increased my family life. So, or improved
Yeah,
my
I
family life.
think that's such a great point that, when you do have integrity in your work-life balance,
Mhm.
there's a calm confidence about you. You're not trying to push everything through and make every deal work. You're like, and when you're not available 24/7 and people have to wait, it just makes you more attractive.
Yeah. And the other thing is, you ever get ready to go on a vacation and somehow you have 3 days worth of stuff to do and you only have one day to do it, but you get it done? Well, when you set office hours and you don't have every evening and weekend to do it, you start to prioritize and you start to become more efficient, or at least you should. And that's the case, right? And also for me, I was always terrible at letting other people do things for me. Hiring employees for the longest time was hard for me. Now, God, I cannot stand when my assistant has a day off. It's like, oh my God, I do not want to do Tabitha's job, and she's very good at it, and I'm not in those aspects. So
Yeah,
now I'm the outsourcing king, but in the past, that was a struggle. That was a big struggle, and
right.
especially for those of us that are control freaks, which is probably the majority of your listeners if they're an entrepreneur.
Um, I think this business attracts drivers and analytical people, a lot of drivers and analytical, and um, some high eyes, but they're usually better off paired off with like an analytical or a driver. Um, so what would you say has been your biggest win as a real estate investor?
My biggest win was I didn't quit. And
Right on. I love that perseverance.
this society we live in today, people give up so easily. And ultimately, um, certainly there was plenty of days when I wanted to, but I refuse to quit. There is always a way. And even if you absolutely fall on your face and you lose everything, short of having, trauma to your brain, you don't lose what's in between your ears. So if I lost everything today, I know I can build it back bigger and better and faster than I did in the past because I know all the shortcuts now. As we're starting to see this transition in the markets, many people that have only been in our business for a few years are panicking. They're panicking over interest rates and deal flow and all these things. And to me, I mean, I've been so excited. This is like Christmas, right? There's opportunities for the small percentage of us that know what to look for, and then when we see it, actually grab that opportunity and run with it. This is fantastic. The last 90 days alone, our lead flow hasn't increased in number of leads, but our conversion is absolutely increasing on creative type of structures. People are more open to discussing alternatives, and they're not getting, you know, 10 showings in the first hour of properties listed. And you know, I saw that a lot when in the lending space because I did all the valuations for every one of our loans, and we averaged 20 to 25 loans a month that closed, which means we were analyzing twice that many properties and loans. And so I kept a very close eye on average days on market to sell a property. And you know, throughout the entire region of our area that we lent in, I always knew what was going on in every market. So I definitely could see the end of the movie, and I knew the end of the movie coming forward, and a lot of other people just don't have that foresight.
Yeah. So, do you want to say anything about your masterminds or because you said that's a piece you really enjoy. This is your time to pitch or plug or promote something if you'd like.
I would pitch and plug that everybody listening should be a part of some type of mastermind. Uh,
Absolutely.
you know, if you're brand new to the business and you just don't know of one or can't find one, start one. And it doesn't have to be uh, you know, this huge production. And if it starts virtually, it starts virtually. I would say that, you know, experience tells me that virtual masterminds don't last a real long time, but it's better than nothing. What we did, oh gosh, 6 years ago, there was a group of us from around the country. We would see each other at seminars and just other people's events. And we all decided, hey, let's just rent a house every 6 months, and you know, we'll travel somewhere nice. We'll get together for 5 6 days, and it's just a round table board of advisors to each other. And when it started, it was specifically all about business. We quickly learned that because business and personal and health are so commingled, that our conversations got very deep very fast. And for me, I do belong to another mastermind that I don't host, and that meets at a hotel in a conference room. It's usually a couple days. People are close, but the secret sauce to our mastermind, which is called the Circle of Trust, is we all stay in that house together, and
And live together and commingle, and it gets more personal.
it gets
Yeah.
more personal. And the conversations that happen over breakfast or sitting in the pool or playing poker, whatever we're doing, there's all these little side conversations, and the growth
It's
is
more intimate. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So and for me, it just the way it stimulates my brain, and the high level conversations are really fantastic.
Love it. So if you were to jump up on a rooftop and you had a captive audience that was hanging on your every word, like, oh my God, give us the pearls of wisdom.
Just like your audience does to you every episode, right?
Yeah, very charming. There's the eye coming out to play. What would your advice be if you knew it was going to have an impact and make a difference?
Hands down, figure out a vision for your personal life, and then build a business that fits that vision, not the other way around.
Amen. I love that.
99% of entrepreneurs, they start a business, they end up working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and they all look at it and say, someday I'll be able to reap the rewards of all this effort. Except they may end up divorced, their kids may not talk to them anymore, they may get sick and die. Like, you don't know if someday's going to come. And when we did this, It was such a change for us. And when you're trying to figure out your vision, you really have to dream and do it as if it's already happening and money and time is not a factor. And just dream and get it in writing. It doesn't matter what format it
Love
can be.
that.
It can be story form, it can be bullet points, whatever's natural for you, but get it written down and look at that thing every damn day. And then as you start achieving things, celebrate your wins, but then redraft your vision. Keep expanding. And what you'll see is that in the beginning, your vision is going to be stuff. I want a vacation. I want a car. I want a house. And eventually stuff just doesn't matter anymore. And it starts becoming more philanthropic.
Experiences and relationships.
Right. You're going to be putting things in your vision that are, maybe I want to go and travel and help people in Africa, or I want to start a nonprofit to help kids. Those types of things just
It's more legacy building, like when your needs are met and you've got everything you need, then it's no longer selfish motives. It's not, it's you've evolved through those Maslow hierarchy of needs of survival, security, belonging, and up to self-actualization, where your needs aren't important anymore because everything's handled. You've got plenty of money, you've got everything you need. Now what? How can I make the world a better place? How can I pick something?
Yeah.
Pick the environment, pick animals, pick homeless, pick veterans, pick AIDS, pick whatever. There's this world, it needs a lot of help. And that's true success when it goes beyond, you've got everything you need, you have plenty. And now what do I want my life to be about?
And to me, on the personal side, for me, it's time. I want time. I lost my father when he was 64 years old, and he retired and then we buried him. And so I don't want my kids, my 3 children, to age out and move away, and I didn't spend the time when I was healthy and when I could. So I know I could make a lot more money, but I don't care. I want to make more time.
Yeah. So find your vision, and let your vision of what you want your personal life to be then lead the professional side. I love that. So many people, the work-life balance, work comes first. How about we do a life-work balance? Life-work balance, life first, and then how do you find work that supports you in living the quality of life and the lifestyle you want to live? I just recently started having people come up to me. I don't know why, but it's kind of cool, asking me to help them make a career transition. And I've been developing a whole process on that. And the money isn't what we focus on. We focus on what's going to make you happy, what's going to help you like really love what you're doing. And it's things that are very personal about finding a job that fits you and your life, not you fitting you and your life into a job. So I love that, Derek. Any last words you want to say?
No, well, yeah, I have a lot of words I would keep saying, but but no, that's just the important part. And recognize that, like, one example from my vision is my wife Tracy and I want to travel. Well, we run the Circle of Trust Mastermind in locations that we would want to travel to.
That's awesome. And it's a write-off.
Right, absolutely. So I mean, we were in Dominican Republic a couple of weeks ago. We were in Aruba in December. We were, all these different places we want to go. And now we're there with people we enjoy, but it's a business and it's a profitable business. So you can have your cake and eat it too when you design your life around your vision.
Love it. Derek, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a podcast guest for me again. And I love it. I love your wisdom. I totally am in alignment with pretty much everything you've said. And I just want to find out if anybody has any questions for Derek before we sign off. And I've got Victoria and Augie on the Zoom with us, but anybody, Mark and Mark's whole team and Sevelin and anybody else who's on the live on Facebook, does anybody have a specific question that you'd like to ask Derek before we wrap up? Augie, Vicky, anybody?
Apparently we gave them so much good content, they don't have any questions.
All right, so please leave a comment in the comments on Facebook Live. One little nugget you got out of this, one little takeaway that you're going to actually go and use. Do you still act? Oh, okay. So someone's asking, do you still actively wholesale?
I do.
He does. Okay.
So what I do is it totally dependent on location of the property, what I have going on at the time, but often, especially before I sold my half of the business to my business partner, we would put together a transaction, I would wholesale it, and then we would lend the money to the person I wholesale it to as well. So it helped them, but it also allowed us to double dip on a deal. So, yep, absolutely still like to wholesale. Keep some for our own portfolio, flip some, it just depends.
Yeah, you like a variety. And then Mark was mentioning the transition to the new vision. How would you advise someone to transition into this lead with your personal life vision first and have your business support that?
The first thing you have to do, Mark, is actually write down what you want for your personal vision, and then without filtering it, without engineering how it's going to happen. And that's important because most of us will filter and we'll just think, oh, there's no way I could ever do that. I don't have
Yeah,
time.
you got to give up concern about the how.
Yes.
Just focus on what you want and focus on that and emotional investment in that. Let go of the how.
And then once you have that and you're reviewing that daily, literally, number one, you will start seeing opportunities that just pop out of nowhere. By the way, they've always been there. You just didn't know to look for them.
Absolutely.
And then you use that vision to filter. Remember I said earlier, I have a hard time saying no. When you have your vision figured out, that's your filter. Should I do this or take this opportunity, or should I not? Does it take me closer to my vision or further away? And that's it'll just organically start to happen.
Yeah, and that's what leads it, is you just keep asking yourself, once you have that vision, mission, core values, that's the foundation you live from. And every choice you make, every decision you make is this congruent with my core values? Am I in integrity with my core values? And is this taking me closer to my vision or further away? And the vision is the far away peak you're always stretching for. It's the unattainable thing that it's that ring just out of reach that you keep reaching for. The vision is strategic. It's the plan for the future. The mission is the tactical. The mission is how you get to the vision, and your core values are what's important to you. So that when you hire people, when you do deals with people, you look, if my core values are integrity and communication, and integrity, there's trust, and, everyone, it's a win-win for everyone. If I have someone who's ghosting me or disrespectful, you got to be willing to walk away from deals and opportunities if they are not a fit for you and your integrity. Don't be so desperate that you're willing to compromise your integrity, your values, who you are, in order to get a deal. It's not worth selling your soul for a deal.
Absolutely not. I agree.
All right, well, that's a wrap, folks. Thanks everybody for joining me. I appreciate it, all the enthusiastic comments. And Derek, if you want to go into my group, The Unstoppable Real Estate Investor, and locate this live and put any links to anything that you want people to be able to find you through, please feel free to do that. And I look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me on again. And if anybody that's listening to this, you ever need any help, just look me up, Derek Dombeck on Facebook, or you can all shoot me an email I'll put my email address in the comments as well in the
Okay.
show. So
All right, everybody. So let me see. It goes reverse. Yeah, there we go. Take action, no excuses, get results. Go out there and get out of your comfort zone, get into your growth zone, do something new, something different, something that scares you just a little bit, and see what kind of results you get from that. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Derek.
thank you.